constitutional crisis, like many have put it, that we have in the country regarding the deputy president's position. And as to whether Professor Kindiki, the DP designate, is the one holding the office, of course not, because he's not been sworn in yet, or Gachagua was, of course, whose impeachment was upheld by the Senate on Thursday, is still the bearer of that office or not? Or do we have two deputies? Or do we have none? That is the biggest question this particular morning, even as court battles are set to start today, all the way to Thursday, regarding the impeachment of Gachagua as the deputy president, and as to whether the process was legitimate or not. The National Assembly and the Attorney General did a petition, or rather sought the intervention of the courts to, of course, lift the conservatory orders issued on Friday, stopping the swearing in of Professor Kindiki as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, just the third Deputy President under the new constitution, and, of course, again, to issue, or rather, the conservative orders were also regarding or against the impeachment of the Deputy President, or upholding of the impeachment of the Deputy President by the Senate on Thursday. Now, gentlemen, let me start with you, Mr. Doyle. Who is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya as we speak today?
As we speak today, there is no substantive Deputy President. The Deputy President nominee is yet to be sworn in. The former Deputy President stands impeached the day the Senate pronounced itself on the matter, according to Article 145 together with 150. He stands impeached, and the courts, from where I sit, has no powers to reappoint him. And if this court declares status quo, he remains impeached. So we don't have a substantive DP. We have a nominee and a former.
The legal team representing Gachagua, and I want to be specific, Counsel Victor Swanya says after the conservatory orders were issued, then it means the status quo remains, and that Gachagua is the outright deputy president. And in fact, Gachagua himself, while addressing the country on Sunday after being discharged from hospital, did say he's the sitting deputy president. Because
Gachagua is not an authority in law. Gachagua is now being driven by his own emotions that he wants to remain the DP. Whoever said the status quo remains said it correctly. The status quo remains. And at that point in time, the status quo was that the DP has been impeached. And he remains impeached until this matter is sorted. In fact, this matter should be in court to talk about procedure. But there's no way the courts can infringe on the role of Parliament. It was the role of the legislature to impeach Gachagua. So Gachagua can only go to court after that to talk about his impeachment. But from where I sit, I don't know how we are going to convince Kenyans that Gachagua was not running away from cross-examination by lawyers. When I looked at him from when he walked out of hospital, I was wondering he was ever having a flu or malaria. He looked so well, even though he wanted to convince us that he was unwell.
So you believe,
I believe he was. Let me tell you, there is nothing people dread like cross-examination by lawyers, especially when the public opinion is also watching, when the court of public opinion is watching on TVs. You saw when this whole thing started, we had listened to submissions by Mutuse, and we had also listened to submissions by Rigiji. And it looked like Mutuse had the upper hand until he was cross-examined. Now Rigiji, who had the lower hand, if he was cross-examined, what would we get? He definitely needed to take off. And let me tell you, he can only delay, but he cannot run away from the impeachment. In any case, I wonder why a person who has accused me of trying to assassinate him would still want to remain my principal assistant. I think that is immoral.
We'll talk about the assassination claims in a moment. Mr. Sosion, from where you sit, is Gachagua still the holder of the office of the deputy president, or we are having a scenario where the president, William Ruto, does not have a principal assistant?
All Kenyans should be alive to the processes of the Constitution. This is a Constitution working, the mechanics of the Constitution. And the impeachment was filed at the National Assembly. And the National Assembly approved it by a vote of 281, all the 11 charges, which was submitted to the Senate. Senate, being the trial chamber, prosecuted the matter effectively. And DP Gachagua was impeached, I think, on 5 clear counts.
Yeah, correct.
Impeached on the 5 clear counts. And the Speaker of the Senate gazetted, and a gazette notice is a legal document, gazetted the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. So as that gazette notice remains effective, it has not been revoked, so he remains impeached. The president forwarded a nominee to the National Assembly as required by the Constitution. And the National Assembly did one thing that is expected of them, to vote. They voted on that nominee. And that nominee garnered 236 votes to 0.
Correct.
That is Professor Kithure Kindiki. And the Speaker of the National Assembly gazetted Kithure Kindiki as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. So he is already gazetted. That gazette notice has not been revoked. And in the plain understanding of the law and the constitutional process, the exercise is rolling to the very penultimate end of the process, where the nominee will be sworn in. And once he's sworn in, he becomes a substantive deputy president. Right now, is the deputy president nominee in terms of the law. So and nothing is going to change. That's the deputy president, nominee. And the title is the deputy president.
Fair enough.
And then Rigathi Gachagua impeached.
Fair enough.
And because he's impeached, he's free to prosecute his matter in court. And I cannot argue, I cannot talk about the matters that are in court in rather prejudicial manner. Let the judicial process do its work. And by the way, the new deputy president will be sworn in before the Chief Justice. That is what the law requires. And by the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary. So what it means is that the judiciary will have to dispense of all these applications before swearing in the new deputy president. It is as simple as that.
Definitely.
And we don't need to apply our minds. Let the judiciary dispense of all these files and all these applications and all these litigations in a manner that they know best. And then after dispensing of those litigations, then the new deputy president, who is Kithure Kindiki, and this is a fact, Kenya has a new deputy president.
Fair enough.
And that new deputy president is still a nominee.
He's not holding office yet.
Who is still a nominee.
Fair enough, Mr. Sossion.
Abraham Kithure Kindiki. That's
pretty much. Mr. Doyle, let's talk about the, Mr. Sossion has alluded to the National Assembly. And this is a house that he sat in the last parliament.
Yes.
Now let me ask you. The Constitution of Kenya says the president shall nominate a deputy president in the circumstance that there is a vacancy in the office of the deputy president within 14 days. And then the National Assembly is given 60 days to vet and approve a nominee. Now, the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua was published in the Kenya Gazette late into the night on Thursday. Friday morning, around 10, 11, the president made a communication to the parliament, to the National Assembly, and he had nominated Professor Kithure Kindiki. And within three hours or so, he was already approved by the National Assembly.
Correct.
Now, why the rush? You have 60 days.
Let me tell you.
Not even a day. Why the rush?
When those upper limits are given, they are given, if there is a reason for you to delay it, you can only delay it for 60 days. If there is a reason for you to delay, you can only delay it for 14 days. But on a need-be basis, you can push it forward as possible. You remember, in the next few days, there was to be a Mashujaa Day. What did you expect? We go to Mashujaa Day without a DP?
And we did go to Mashujaa Day.
Of course we did go to a DP because
no
of the cantankerous nature of the person who had been impeached. If I have been impeached by a lawful house, and I know even if I go to court back and forth, I can only go back to the same house. There is no day the courts will ever take the power of parliament or senate to impeach Rigathi Gachagua. He can waste time in court, he can spend time in court, but in the end, he will have to go home the same way it had been done on day one. So actually, Kenyans should be very wary of the cantankerous nature of the outgoing DP. I do not understand why even somebody would come and argue here that there was 6 days. Why was it done so fast? Do you know how long we take to deal with president petitions? Only 14 days. Because those are very serious offices that don't need to remain vacant. Imagine the moment Gachagua had been impeached, imagine we remain with that office for long, and for whatever reason the president is unavailable. Don't you see a crisis there? So if we have no reason to wait for 60 days, why do we?
Now, question is, you've not answered my question. Why the hurry? I mean, there are certain processes.
I have told you the hurry. We were having Mashujaa Day, and we had to have a DP on that day.
What is wrong with holding a Mashujaa Day without the DP after all?
And what is wrong with the hurry? What is wrong with the hurry?
Why were the framers of the Constitution wrong in having 60 days?
They didn't say you do it in 60 days. They said if there is a reason to postpone it, you cannot postpone it beyond 60 days.
The National Assembly was not, even able to debate about the nominee himself, Professor Kindiki.
Let me tell you. Now, if it is said that I can stay hungry for 40 days, do I have to even stay hungry for a day?
Let me ask you,
because it is 40 days, I will still be alive.
Before I come back to Mr. Sosion, this is what the communication from President William Ruto said.
Yes.
As a prerequisite, a requisite of the nomination, I sought and received confirmation from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission that the candidate herein is qualified to vie for the election as a member of Parliament in accordance with Article 137, subsection 1 of the Constitution. My question is, do we have IEBC in place?
To do what?
Do we have IEBC in place?
We don't.
Thank you very much.
To do what? To do what? Let me tell you, the position of the deputy president is not elective.
Okay.
It is a place that the president nominates. And that is what the president did. All the president needs to do is nominate somebody who is qualified to be a member of parliament, to be a president of the Republic of Kenya. That is all the president needs to do. And he doesn't need IEBC to prove that to him. He can do it himself.
We cannot disregard what the law says.
What does the law say?
The law says he must be cleared by IEBC. We do not have the IEBC.
Who must be cleared? I want you to read for me.
The deputy president nominee.
Must be cleared by IEBC?
Yes.
To be able to?
Before he's approved.
Because that is one elective. Now it is appointive. Then it was elective. Now it is appointive. We had, we had the DG of Kisii County impeached, and a new one is already in office. Why didn't they cite that case? Let us not trivialize things. The DP is not an elective position, and at this point in time, we even had the governor of Nyeri.
Yes. Okay.
When the governor of Nyeri died, the DP took over, and we are moving on. There was not IEBC to declare anything.
Because that is what the law says.
Yes, the law says now it is no election, it is nomination.
The governor takes over that position. That is what the law says.
Yes.
Mr. Sosion, what do you make of this?
But even in assuming when a deputy is taking over,
okay,
what is the role of the IEBC in such a circumstance? Because no election is being conducted. And in this process of nomination, there was no election being conducted to warrant even the commissioners. The IEBC does exist as an institution. Currently, it doesn't have chair and commissioners, but it has the chief executive officer. It has the legal department. It has all the necessary infrastructure. Personnel. And therefore, if we need to know whether Owidi is an eligible voter in Kenya, we can still contact IEBC today and we'll get that fact without necessarily having the chair and commissioners in place. Okay. And I think this is what was done. There is a CEO in all institutions. That was a managerial information that was required. It's only information that you consult the data, and that was done.
My question would be: we have the secretariat in place. That is true.
The secretariat in place, and this
is the secretariat mandated
the information. Of course,
that particular.
Yes, it is there for managerial reasons. It is not something that required decision by commissioners. No, it is an information that is there within the secretariat. And by the way, even if we argue for the sake of arguing, who is Kithure Kindiki? Kithure Kindiki is the former senator of Tharaka Nithi County. Who is Kithure Kindiki? Kithure Kindiki was almost the nominee running mate of Kenya Kwanza administration. Who is Kithure Kindiki? Kithure Kindiki was the chief agent of the president at the Bomas of Kenya. He's known, and that's a fact. He's a voter, he voted, and he qualifies to contest any seat in this country. And that verification only needed to be done by the IBC.
Okay.
And it was done. So I think this matter of argument is almost as good as done and dusted. The issues that remain for sanitization so that the process can proceed to the next level. And as it is for Kenya and our constitution, we like litigating. The courts will entertain all litigations.
Exactly.
It will give rulings, and that's a good thing, so that Kenyans, the doubting Thomases, will eventually know that actually impeachment was conducted and done properly. Okay. And Kithure Kindiki can be sworn in comfortably and assume office authoritatively, and we have a presidency that works, because what is very urgent, Keitany and all Kenyans, is not who is in a particular office. What is very urgent is that we must have a governance in place that is able to preside over what Kenyans were promised, particularly the transformation in agriculture, transformation in MSME, the ICT infrastructure, and of course the fourth industrial revolution by the ICT, the housing. It must be real, the UHC, the creative economy, upgrading of our infrastructure within the country, and supporting the delivery of equitable quality education, among many other developmental agendas for the country. There is an urgent need to transform the economy of this country and ensure that citizens are comfortable. Okay. That is the most urgent thing. So we don't need to get cloaked in these leadership issues. Let them be past us. And you have asked, why didn't we wait for 60 days? Why should you waste the time of the country in 60 days? If it says within 60 days, it can even be done within 5 minutes. 5 minutes is within 60 days. 2 minutes is within 60 days. 3 days is within 60 days. It says within. So if Senate on Thursday voted successfully at around 10 p.m. successfully, and the Speaker of the Senate pronounced that the Deputy President stands impeached, and within another few minutes, there was a Gazette notice.
Exactly.
Yeah? Because you can release that Gazette notice.
Some argue.
Nothing would stop the clerk of the Senate from transmitting that information, the resolution of the Senate, by 10:30 p.m. to the clerk of the National Assembly. Okay. Nothing would would stop the House Business Committee of the National Assembly from listing the discussion of the nominee.
Fair enough,
and you saw the president submitted the name by 9 p.m., 9 a.m. the next day.
Fair enough.
And once such a communication gets to the speaker in the order paper from the communication of the chair, the speaker communicates to the House.
Okay, fair
and
enough.
He communicated.
Mr. Widdy.
And upon communication, the House business went to prepare. And there was a motion.
Some quarters
so everything has been done. Why are people uncomfortable when things are done meticulously on time?
Let me ask you. Yes. Some do argue that the rush was, of course, in a bid to ensure that the courts do not, stop the entire process, because some believe that the process in itself was flawed. According to the legal team representing the Deputy President, they say the process was violated in the National Assembly and even in the Senate. And the DP himself said, in the principle of fair hearing, he was not accorded that.
Actually, people are just refusing to read correctly the impeachment procedure and the process. We must remember that if Parliament can do it within minutes, the courts can also do it within minutes. In the process, we are saying, after according the DP opportunity to be heard. That opportunity was accorded. He walked away from it, citing intense chest pains. Let me tell you something about intense chest pains. It's a sign of heart attack, a mild heart attack. Wow. When you get out of that, even there's discoloration on your face. And when I saw him, the guy is fine. He was walking away from cross-examination. But nevertheless, his lawyers will cite anything, will say anything. But somebody to argue that there is 60 days, so we can, even when you are given a check expires in 90 days, but it will be written and you walk straight to the bank to cash it. One of the reasons why this thing has to move fast, because the line of thought of the people who are doing this had to remain alive and intact. Just imagine we were interrogating the DP and we give another 2 weeks, then we come, another lot interrogates it. People will lose line of thought. People would lose data. People would have canvassing. So the way it was done is the best way it can be done, and it should be done like that in the future. The reason why the 60 days was provided was so that in case somebody wants to buy time with an impeachment process, we can only allow you to buy time for 60 days. But if you don't buy time, we should even do it in 1 day. That you have been charged. These are the charges against you. Tell us your side of the story.
Why not wait until, you know, the person who's being impeached exhausts all legal avenues?
There's no legal avenues envisaged in that constitution. There is none. Actually, he's only going to court because the courts in Kenya allows you to go and complain that the process by which Parliament and Senate used to impeach you was unprocedural or illegal. That is all. But in that constitution, there are no legal avenues envisaged there.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll just take a brief breather, and then we'll be back to talk about other key issues that, you know, sentiments of the deputy president, including the assassination claims that he made. He said there was attempted assassination in terms of, you know, by way of poisoning in Kisumu and Nyeri counties respectively. But as well, there's the issue of you know, Gachagua saying the president does not want anybody who tells him the truth, and he's the only person who can be able to tell the president the truth in the cabinet and in the entire government. That will be after this short commercial break. Don't go away.